Hey there. All button presses will be displayed next to the cursor. We'll be doing the main portion of the body, so just follow along as best as you can. Let's move the eyeballs out of the way. There we go. Just get a good look at what we're working with. To start off, we need to make sure that our frog is a live object. So select it, come up here, and click that little magnet button. With that done, we can go to Quad Draw, turn it on, and make sure our symmetry is turned on to Object X. And anything we do on the right side will be mimicked on the left side. So let's go ahead and start out. With Quad Draw turned on, we are clicking our right mouse button on our object to place down vertices, and then holding down Shift and clicking the right mouse button to create new polygons. And we're going to start with the simple objects first, which in this case will be the legs, since they're basically just simple cylinders. And we'll complete those out. Adjust where we need. I want the top portion to follow the natural curves of the creature's body. Which kind of dip inward towards the center of the creature. Start on the back legs. Again, we're just clicking to place vertices and holding down Shift and clicking again to create new polygons based on the placement of those vertices. And as long as you hold Shift and move your mouse, you can kind of preview where those new polygons are going to be created before you release your mouse button. And again, after you've placed your polygons, vertices, you can go back and adjust them by clicking on the polygons, the edges, or the vertices themselves to move them around on the surface of the live object. If sometimes it doesn't want to create polygons where you think it should, like there when it was trying to connect to the legs at the bottom, just move the camera around, get a better view of it. That should fix the problem. Now here I'm holding Control to add edges to the polygons that I already created. Holding Shift and clicking will smooth out objects on the surface of the live object. adding more edges, and smoothing them out. If you ever smooth too much, as I did there, just press Ctrl Z on your keyboard to undo it. Adding some more edges to the legs. And you can see whenever you add new edges, the shape will change to match up with the surface of the live object. The more vertices we add, the more faces we add, the more geometry that's there to match the underlying surface. And as I've said before in class, it's like working with paper mache. You have the support structure, and you're just laying on new material on top of it. And you can see there, with just those two polygons, that's not enough to, match that curve in its back. So once I add more, add an edge there, it snaps up to meet and match the surface. There's sometimes whenever you're trying to add new polygons, connecting, two existing polygons, it won't want to make the right connections. So in that case, I will place down more vertices so I can get exactly the polygon placement that I want. And as I'm creating new geometry, I'm constantly tweaking it and smoothing it out, and just seeing how it feels up to this point. I'll go ahead and start expanding the polygons on his back, down the side. And right now I'm finding the kind of the loop of his neck and where I want his main body to end before moving into the rest of the head. All right. And we'll go ahead and add some more edges to his back. And again, just if you don't know exactly which buttons I'm pressing, rewind and just pay attention to the pop-ups next to my mouse cursor. Like here you can see that I'm holding down Shift and then holding down the left mouse button as I drag my mouse around and smooth out the placement of the polygons. Okay. Now we have these islands of polygons and we need to start connecting them to one another. Connecting the legs and the tail to the main body. again, one of those tricky connections. So just move that closer to where I want to connect it, and then move it back to where I need it. All right. Here I'm just thinking about how I want to go forward with connecting the legs to the body. When you get to the point where you're doing this for yourself with your own models, you'll spend a lot of time just looking at it and trying to think, a few steps ahead. In this case, I want an edge to run through the center of his body on his side. So kind of repositioning some of the existing edges, smoothing them. Now, so far, I'm trying to create as little geometry as I can. Won't always be that way, because once I have everything kind of placed out in its simplest form, I can go back and add detail. And here we get to the butt. Now, one thing is that, of course, you want edges to kind of follow the natural edges of the underlying model. So here I'm kind of packing in an edge underneath the butt cheek. And kind of like how we did with the tail, I am creating a rounded surface out of 4 polygons on each butt cheek, treating it much the same way as the tail, as another extrusion from the body, just because I want that to be more defined. Those 2 little islands of polygons will meet in the middle for the butt crack. Butt crack. Now here I'm kind of thinking about how I want these polygons to connect with the rest of the body. And what I did there was connect those two polygons running up from the top and the side together and forming a pole. Now most times when polygons meet, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. Poles just have 3 edges where they meet at. Alright. Let's go ahead and connect it to the tail, I think. Really start heading up that way. Smooth it out. Like I said, and there may be times when you smooth too much or it doesn't quite work how you want it to. Just press Control and Z on the keyboard to undo that. Go ahead and put those back. Sometimes I'll delete stuff to see if there's maybe a better way of laying it out. But they're like this wouldn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Place that back in there. And I'll just connect it up through here. Smooth it out. Now this gets a little complicated. Trying to get all these polygons to match up and form together correctly. So just pay careful attention here. A lot of the times I'm, doing some trial and error, so if you see me do something, that may not be the last time that might not be the final version of it. So just pay attention to whenever I go back and change something. So here's a complicated spot. We have a gap to close, but one side has 1, 2, 3 sides, and the other one has 1 and 2. I can connect them, but still have this open triangle right here. And I don't want any triangles. So how do I fix that? There's a few tricks I could utilize. And sometimes I'll delete polygons just to kind of open things up and see if something, I didn't see before becomes apparent. But I think what I'll have to do is just add more geometry. So I'm going to cut an edge through here. It's a little bunched up, but we'll just smooth it out. Especially paying attention to the leg. Just get everything nice and even. There we go. That's the whole body. Oh, except for the underbelly. We'll get to that in a second. Just gonna smooth it out some more before we move on to the underbelly, and finally adding some more detail. Now I'm not covering the legs entirely because those toes right there, I want to leave room to work on them later. So kind of just going to the ankle. And that little section's kind of flat, so let's see. Again, I'm just going around and smoothing things out where I see fit. And I'm going to start adding in some more cuts. Every time I do that, go back and smooth them out. Just keeping all of the polygons relatively equal in size compared to the ones next to them. It's okay to have transitions from larger polygons into smaller polygons, depending on areas that need them, like the tail. But I like avoiding abrupt size changes. I'm going to go ahead and turn off Quad Draw, go to Object Select Mode, and move this out just so I can see how it's looking so far. And you don't have to do this. If you followed along up to this point, then this should be what yours looks like. I'm going to select it, come up to Mesh Display, and Soften Edges. I think it's rid of all the hard edges on the polygons. So yeah, look at that. It's almost undistinguishable. But comparatively, a drastic change in the number of polygons to create basically the same object. Efficiency. If you're going to be a good video game modeler, efficiency in how you use your polygons is very important. Going to move that back into this place. Yeah, probably best you don't bother turning off Quad Draw. Okay. Now let's start on his front legs here and the rest of his belly. Add some more detail. I'm going to add an edge there to connect that. There we go. And then just start connecting that there, smoothing it out. This area is actually pretty easy to connect together. More so than the tail and the back legs. There we go. Smooth it out. I technically could stop here. But if I wanted to animate this, there's still some areas where I would like to have a little bit more detail. So I'm just going to start adding in edges to some of the flatter looking areas. And just smoothing them out whatever I do. Right there. Now, as you do this, I'm not gonna expect you to. You could have stopped earlier in the video before I began adding new geometry and smoothing stuff out. I still would have accepted that. I just need to see the entire main part of the body, minus the head and the toes modeled. I think we're almost there. Gonna go ahead and turn off quad draw. Object mode. And pull it out. Now the new geometry that we made is still hard edged, so go up to mesh display. Soften edge, smooth everything out. There we go. Now there's some areas, just a drastic change. Much better suited for animating or putting into a game engine. One thing you might notice though is that some areas are more defined on the original model than they are on the new one. We can fix that by going into Edge Select and selecting a few of these edges right down the middle. I'll select those 4 there. Deselect that top one. So I just have these 3. Come back up and harden edge. And there we go. Gives a little bit more definition. Yeah, it's dumb, but stuff like that gives, gives a character. All right. If you've gotten this far, congratulations. I'll see you around.